was also encouraged to leave Milwaukee. And I always felt that that didn't sit right. For me, I felt that the fight was right here in my own backyard. And so I wanted to stay and be a part of the change that I want my kids to be able to benefit from. These are the things that we have to be fighting for. You know, born and raised here in the city of Milwaukee. I grew up on 23rd and Bar Line, that famous zip code that we're always talking about, the 53206 zip code, which is one of the highest incarcerated zip codes in the state of Wisconsin, possibly in the country, when we think about not just individuals who are incarcerated, but returning home from incarceration. And during my younger years, it was a struggle. Both of my parents both struggled with drug addiction and mental health. We faced a lot of different housing insecurity, being evicted at least 3 times by the time I was 16 years old, moving every year of my life for at least 13 years. So never really had that stability other than my education. Went to 3 public schools my whole life: Our Avenue, Meck Middle School, and Bayview High School. And when I was a high school junior, I had an organization called Urban Underground that really helped save my life. One, it taught me how to love myself, but also taught me about my community, but also found ways to bring me outside of my community to visit different neighborhoods in different states and different communities that I never thought that I could see myself in. And it really changed my life and set this path of community organizing for myself. And so I did some community organizing, got involved with the AmeriCorps program via Public Allies, and felt that this was my calling. And when you start doing community organizing, you start seeing yourself in front of elected officials who are the decision makers in many cases. And that path veered me into getting involved in politics. So in 2010, I got my first start working for then United States Senator Russ Feingold as his African-American statewide organizer. And then met a lot of different people. And then my former boss, State Senator Nakia Dodd, literally just called me out the blue and asked me to come work for her. So I worked for her for about 6 years before I got bit by that bug to run for office myself.
So having to move every year, growing up in the most incarcerated zip code in the United States, you're clearly very successful and do a lot for the community. What kept you going, or what really motivated you when you had to go through all of that?
You know, what really motivated me was actually, being introduced to those different perspectives as I talked about as a young person, right? And so when you go to Atlanta for the first time, you go to, Los Angeles for the first time, you go to DC, you go to these different places, and you go back home and you wonder, why don't we have these same type of opportunities? Why aren't African Americans who are in the same position of me as I am not struggling as much in all these different communities? And so for me, it was really about, but also I would say that I was also encouraged to leave Milwaukee. And I always felt that didn't sit right for me.
You were encouraged to leave
I was
Milwaukee.
encouraged to leave Milwaukee. If you leave Milwaukee, you can go get a good education, you can go work, and then you can come back. But I think many of us understand that when you leave your hometown, a lot of folks don't necessarily come back. And so for me, what really kept me going was I seen many of my friends leaving for college. I seen many of my family members leaving, or my brothers leaving to join the military service to fight for this country. And for me, I felt that the fight was right here in my own backyard. And so I wanted to stay and be a part of the change that I want my kids to be able to benefit from.
You got evicted several times, obviously not the easiest upbringing. What made you loyal to this city? Because I feel like a lot of people could say, I need to get out of this place.
Well, I mentioned like it was a struggle growing up, but the first place that I really found love, like love for this community, was the community itself. And so when I think back and reminisce about all of my mentors, all of the individuals who helped me be where I am, for me it was about, how do I make sure that I'm living on not just my mother and my father's legacy, but their legacy as well, with all the things that they have instilled into me? And so my loyalty really came with this community saved my life. It is up to me now to give back to this same community to make sure that they can thrive themselves.
Mm-hmm. You went to Bayview High School. I believe you took 2 buses to
get Red
there
Cats
and get back. What was that experience like? You grew up on the northwest side, and go to high school in Bayview?
It was very interesting. I would definitely tell you that.
First time interacting with white people or Hispanic people?
Yeah,
maybe
I
too?
mean, in a sense, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you think about, I mean, you can get on certain buses in Milwaukee County and just take that one line from one end to the other, and you can see the change. You can see where, the middle class families live, where the poorer families live, and you can see that, right? And so I remember growing up on 22nd and Brown at this time, and I had to catch the 57 to the 15. And you take that bus down Walnut, you get dropped off of Water in Wisconsin, then we're taking the 15 bus south through Kinnickinnick all the way to Bayview, and you can just see that, for me, it was like, is this Milwaukee? This can't be the same place. This but looks totally different, than the place that I currently live. My parks don't look this clean. My streets don't look this clean. But it helped put it in perspective for me that these are the things that we have to be fighting for. When we talk about fighting for equity, it's really about how do we make sure that, no matter what zip code you live in, that you're getting the same types of services, programs, and opportunities that folks are getting, whether they live in Bayview or whether they live in River Hills.
You have a pretty high stress job. You're raising 3 children too. And it seems like you're a big health and mental health advocate as well. Are there any things that you make sure you do on a daily basis or try and do for yourself? Well, you look like you're in good shape and have your
I'm
stuff together
trying.
as well.
First I would say when it comes down to my mental health, I have to make sure that my wife's mental health is taken care of first.
That is
right?
good advice for the listeners. Yeah, it's hard to have your own health set when that's not taken care of.
Happy spouse, happy house, and so one, I make sure to give like my wife a particular day, and there are days where I get to have to myself to have a little bit of downtime, because when I come home from work, the one thing that I love about being a county executive, being here, is that I have the opportunity to still, not only take my girls to school, but I can read them a book at night. I can still have dinner with them. And so, but, I do like to work out. I'm an avid basketball fan, so I'm a huge Milwaukee Bucks fan, and I try to work out as much as possible. I've actually gotten to doing a little bit of yoga lately to try to stay fit, and not just physically, but also mentally.
You feel good walking out of there.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of sore, but I will tell you, when I work out in the mornings, my days are much better than they ever are when I don't.
Do you hoop at all?
Oh, all the time. Try to get out to the Milwaukee Athletic Club every once in a while to hoop on some Saturdays. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got a good group that goes out there.
With Ian Abston and company and his hobbled old self.
He's still out there, though.
Dude, good for you for still being out there at 37. I used to be in the MAC league and everything. I loved it.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah, the aging hit me a little early with my legs and my hairline, and I called it at about 27.
Man. See, you can't use that excuse, because we got 50-plus-year-olds coming out there now. So come on,
Ian's
out
been trying to get me to come back for years, and I think he just gave up on me. He does have a submitted question in this episode. For those of you who don't know, he is a renowned millennial consultant in the area, whatever that means. Do you know what that means as the county executive?
I just thought he was a professional networker or partier.
Yeah, but he
does great work.
No one knows. Also, a former TEDx Fargo, North Dakota speaker. So we're just.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, we're lucky to have the guy in the city. Just a big time guy who the city's managed to retain that kind of talent. I mean, that's a good sign and speaks volumes to the work that you're doing as county executive as well. You almost didn't run for county executive. Your very, very pregnant wife kind of pushed you over the edge. Could you? Yeah, you told me that before we got on there. Do you mind sharing that story? I found that great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I would say, so I was originally, what happened was that summer I had just endorsed former county executive Chris Abley, and I'm gearing up for the re-election. Everybody's gearing up for the re-election. And then out the blue, he made the decision that he was not going to run again. And so I started getting some phone calls, and for about 2-3 weeks, in and out of town, doing some conferences. I'm talking to my wife. And, at this time, we got a baby on the way. Baby is at this, Autumn was actually due November 9th. And so I'm asking my wife, I'm pushing my wife. And there was a point where my wife basically said to me, if you don't do this, we're going to have problems. And as I was saying to you, I didn't know she was talking about problems in the community or problems with her.
Could
But
have been all the above.
it could have been all of the above. But that was the motivation, that was the push, that was the inspiration that I needed to really go out there and really kind of leap before I looked when you think about a seat of this magnitude. Because prior to this, I was a state representative, worked in the state capitol, 3 years as an elected official, 4 years as a staffer, and also was a staffer for the Milwaukee County Board at one point. So I knew the ins and outs and believe I could do a good job. But did we have the resources? Could we build the coalitions needed? And a few months later, we won this seat. So I'm proud of the work that we have done. It's definitely challenging work, but it is so rewarding, and I'm glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. One big thing that's come about recently is the sales tax raise. So went from 5.5% to 7.9% in the city, 5.5 to 5.9 in the county. Can you touch on that, how that came about and what it's doing?
Absolutely. So for Milwaukee County, we were facing a huge fiscal crisis. So just to backtrack a little bit, 25 years ago, we had a pension scandal. And we're still paying for this pension scandal in a sense to where, we have, about $1 billion in liabilities that we have to pay. We're spending about $110 million every year just to pay for the pension. And to put that in perspective, we only collect $300 million in local property taxes, right? So a third of our property tax was just going to the pension alone because it wasn't fixed. Nobody was fixing it. And so for us, Milwaukee County was in a place where we were going to continue to have to cut all of our major services, whether we're thinking about public transit, whether we're thinking mental health, substance abuse, housing. We will have to put all of the major programs and services that people rely on, some of our most vulnerable residents rely on the chopping block. So it was either we were going to cut these services or we're going to fight for the additional resources that we need. And so the 0.4% increase for Milwaukee County has allowed us to do many things. It has, one, allowed us to have the largest property tax decrease in Milwaukee County's history in over 20 years. It has allowed us to invest $16 million into our Milwaukee County transit system, focusing not only improvements, but safety aspects for both of our operators and our passengers. We've been able to invest another $4 million on top of the $12 million that we received in ARPA funds, specifically towards housing affordability. And so this has really put us in a much better financial position. But I will say that this hasn't solved all of our problems. So we have to make sure that we still, be prudent with our taxpayer dollars. But Milwaukee County is in the best fiscal position that we have been in almost 3 decades.
How much are we paying a year for the pension scandal?
So the unfunded liability alone, we were paying about $110 million a year. $110 million a year.
When does that all get paid off?
So at this moment, right now, because the way that the sales tax works is that the sales tax that we collect at 0.4% is dumped directly into the pension, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is that the money gets dumped into the pension, but all the property taxes that we were funding the pension with now gets pulled out to fund all the other programs and services. So once we are done paying for the pension, the sales tax will actually sunset and it will no longer be there. And we'll still have the ability to invest in our services that so many people rely on.
Oh, interesting. What would you say to people who are pushing back about the sales tax or who are not happy about the sales tax?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to recognize that not everything is taxed in the state of Wisconsin. So when we think about the gas that you're putting in your car, that's not taxed. Our water bills are not taxed. Groceries are not taxed. So some of our most vulnerable residents will not feel the pain when it comes down to what is being taxed and what is not. But what I will say is that if we had to shut down buses, cut routes, cut our mental health, cut our services for our courts, cut our correctional staff and our sheriff's staff, that would have been even more detrimental. And at the end of the day, if we would have had to make these cuts, it will make Milwaukee County a less desirable place, not a more desirable place, a less desirable place to want to work, live, and play. Mm-hmm. And so with these dollars, this is literally going to be the first time that we're collecting tax dollars that's going to be able to stay in our community being investing in our community, and you're going to see the fruits of this labor.
And it adds 184 million a year, I believe. Is that what I read?
So it's going to add about $80 million a
84
year.
million. Okay.
Yeah.
And that helps with the 31 million.
Yeah.
And it's not that bad. So if Ian Abston's buying a $14 beer at the Pfizer Forum, it would only jump to $14.34.
Right. Well, we're thinking about, in the city of Milwaukee, yes, because the city needed their 2% increase, and that was specifically for public safety and fire and things of that nature. So when we think about the increase, it is very nominal. And even still, when you go to some of those major towns that I talked about, Atlanta, Denver, LA, New York, we're still much lower than their sales taxes on many of these places.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw Chicago's 10%.
10%.
Minneapolis is 9%.
Yeah.
We're only 8%. Going off that, Ian Abston was wondering, as the county executive, do you think the Pfizer Forum should be allowed to sell beer for $14?
Well, you're gonna have to ask Peter Fagan that. But as long as we got Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm not complaining about
that
anything.
Is spoken
right
like
now.
a true politician right there. I like it. Okay, all right. I think that's all from the millennial consultant and TEDx speaker Ian Abston today. So going down to $3 million of this goes to the parks, I believe, which need it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I got this off some article on the internet. So $3 million goes to the parks. You're actually decreasing property tax by a total of $21 million this year.
Yeah.
$16 million to the transit system, $25 million in capital, which goes to parks projects as well.
Yes. And these are all investments that we need to make. I mean, particularly when you think about parks, right? So when we think about deferred maintenance, Milwaukee County has about $1 billion in deferred maintenance. Now, half of that $1 billion is our public safety building, which has been crumbling. It's 100+ years old. We know that that's one of the biggest projects that we have to tackle in the future. But the other half of that deferred maintenance is our parks, making sure that we can continue to have our crown jewels. And so to be able to expand, our Parks Department staff by about 18 different positions, the capital projects that you talked about, this is going to continue to allow us to be that attractive place, a region of choice when it comes down to, recruiting new people to come take some of these jobs, but also making sure that we can retain the great folks that we have in Milwaukee County as well.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to touch on the Brewers deal too. That was a hot topic over the summer. Evers signed the bipartisan ballpark fundraising bill, keep the Brewers here for the next 27 years. $500 million public funding, $7 million from the city. Well, what's the importance of this, and what role did you play as the county executive?
Absolutely. So one, when you think about the Brewers, I mean, they're an important, incredibly important economic as well as a cultural asset.
Yeah.
And so I am extremely happy that Governor Evers signed this huge piece of bipartisan legislation into law because it allows us to keep the Brewers here. But it doesn't just do that. Right. The other thing is that Milwaukee County, we were actually able to negotiate additional flexible revenue. So over the course of this lease, Milwaukee County will receive over $239 million in additional flexible spending, so we can actually take care of the businesses that we want to be able to take care of. So not only do we keep the Brewers here without any additional impact on taxpayers, and their dollars aren't necessarily paying for this, but we are also getting a benefit over the course of the lease. And so for me, this is a good thing for Milwaukee. We have the Bucks here. We don't want to lose the Brewers. And we have to remember that the Brewers also bring many people outside of our community here. Mm-hmm. So when you think about those who live in Waukesha, Ozaki, Washington, or Racine, Kenosha, hell, on some days, Chicago, when AmFam Field becomes Wrigley North, those are folks who are coming into our community, spending those dollars, and we get to keep those dollars here. So this is a good thing for us.
Absolutely. Your efforts as county executive really focused on 5 main areas: behavioral and mental health, public safety, affordable housing, juvenile justice, and transportation. Mm-hmm. Can you, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of the cliff notes on what you're mainly focused on right now. I'm sure each one of those categories could be their own podcast, but.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're doing a lot. I mean, one, we talk about affordable housing, right? We've seen the largest push of affordable housing in suburban neighborhoods than we have seen in over 20, 30 years right here within Milwaukee County. and really excited to have these partners at the table. The other thing that we're focusing on is mental health. We know that we have to tackle the mental health issues as well as the substance use issues within Milwaukee County. So we've been putting online harm reduction vending machines. So if folks need to have ways to dispose their medication or be able to have some Narcan because somebody may be in a substance use crisis, those things are available to them. We have a lot of things happening with our Community Reintegration Center, right, where we have a partnership with both Marquette and MATC to work with those individuals who are in our care. So once they return back home, they're much better than when they walked into the CRC. So we're doing some occupational training around welding there. We have the first ever family center in the state of Wisconsin to make sure that they have the support systems that they need. We've also increased free phone calls and video time for these individuals to be able to communicate with their support systems. But as we begin to move forward, even with juvenile justice, we're going to continue to invest in our Credible Messengers program, right? Which, when we think about every young person that's been through that program, 2/3, about 75% of the young people who've been through there hasn't reoffended and come back through our doors. So how do we continue to really build the capacity of all the work that we have been doing with the limited resources that we have, while also creating and building upon the relationships at both the state and federal level to bring resources back to make these incredible investments?
Let's move on to some quick questions. The standard five-ish quick questions sponsored by Central Standard Distillery. This one was not on my notes, but now that I found out you hoop at the MAC, who is the best defender out of these three?
Okay.
Alex Lazary, Steven Gruber, any of the 50-year-olds that you mentioned that play with you?
So most of the time, me and those two guys are on the same team. But actually,
then you have to pick up slack for them.
So I definitely have to pick up slack for him a lot of the times. But actually, the one person I would throw out there, Joe Brennan. Joe Brennan has come out there.
Joe
Brennan.
Love that guy.
Yes.
GMC. Former Discovery World.
Oh, yeah. Former DOA secretary.
He's got some height and a little bit of girth on him. I could see him on the block down there.
Either, because he's out there more than me, to be honest. So
we're going with Joel Brennan. Much better defender than Lazary and Gruber. All right. I like that answer. Next question. This one was on my notes. It's a big year with the RNC coming to town. Likely maybe the most divisive and divisive election and controversial election in the history of our country. Potentially, you're a Democrat.
Yes.
What are your views on the RNC
coming
into Milwaukee?
I think everybody understands that the road to the presidency comes through Milwaukee County and the state of Wisconsin. So we know that all eyes are going to be on Milwaukee. And when it comes down to the RNC, it is our job to make sure that they have the greatest party that they can have and make sure that they are safe as well. But I truly believe that this is a great opportunity for our entire region. When you think about our businesses and our workers, this is a great opportunity for them to showcase what they can do. And because we know so many people are going to be watching the Republican National Convention, this is the time for us to be in the spotlight, to really show what we have to offer to help attract more conferences, seminars, whatever you can name right here to the Milwaukee area. And I think it's going to be great. And I'm reminded of, the Bucks run, right? And we had the opportunity to do the championship and the parade. And the following year, we had the Red Bull Flutog right here at Veterans Park within the city of Milwaukee. And we was wondering, how did they find Milwaukee? And they were watching the Bucks parade and seeing the Veterans Park and said, we think we need to go there. So it really gives us an opportunity to shine. And I truly believe with, everything that happened with the Democratic National Committee convention, because it wasn't able to go on the way it needed to go on because of the pandemic, this gives us a redo in a sense to really showcase all the great things that we have to offer.
So you look at it from more of a bipartisan standpoint, good for the city, good
absolutely.
Good publicity.
It's not about red or blue. It's about the green.
Some people are not looking forward to all the Trumpsters coming to town and things
like
that.
Well, I think there are going to be a lot of folks who are going to have their popcorn ready for all of this. But, no, it's not about red or blue. It's about the green for Milwaukee.
I like that. I'm going to create a clip of that. That's a good line. What would you say the biggest, if you could narrow it down to one issue, what would you say the biggest issue Milwaukee faces right now is?
The biggest issue, I think that there are a lot of things that we can name, right? But the one thing that I would throw out there is unity. And the reason why I say unity is I've traveled and had the opportunity to meet people who come from the Milwaukee area, and it's always interesting to me when I'm somewhere and somebody say, "Oh yeah, I grew up in the Milwaukee area," and I was like, "Oh, where you live?" It was like Shorewood. It's like that's Milwaukee, right? That's Milwaukee County, like. And so I say unity because a lot of the times we forget that we are one county, and we always want to pin the city of Milwaukee versus our suburbs. But if our suburbs are doing well, that means our city is doing well. And if our city is doing well, that means our suburbs is doing well. And I believe that for the county as well. And so when we can get our businesses, we can get our union members, when we can get the business leaders, Republicans and Democrats, to understand who we are and what our goals are as a Milwaukee community, I think that will help us out politically, economically as well. And so I will always say that the unity that we need is on the horizon. I will say that when you think about all the work that we've been able to do, but I would say that is the biggest issue. And not just unity within Milwaukee County and our municipalities, but even partnerships across the state, right? We are the economic engine of this state. And it's hard to say that without feeling like I'm beating my chest. But we do this in partnership with other communities. We do this in partnership with the Wausau, with the La Crosse, with the Green Bay, because they have things that we don't have. And our people go there like their people come here. And so it's really about, I would say, creating even stronger partnerships is something that we should be focusing on.
What is your favorite thing to do in Milwaukee?
Go to a Bucks game.
I enjoy that too. I'll be there on Saturday.
I'll be there Saturday as well.
Nice,
That's going to be a good one.
Maybe I'll see you there. Favorite Milwaukee restaurant? Do you have one? Go-to spot?
So I'm a steak guy. I love Carnivore. Carnivore is probably my favorite steak place. But if I'm not at Carnivore, my wife loves pasta. And so she always wants to go to the Calderon Club.
Nice.
So those are my two favorites.
I'm guessing you know Eric Kennedy.
Yeah, who doesn't know Eric?
Hashtag breaking bread. Right.
Yes.
I do want to give him a shout out. I did the Donut Smackdown thing, if you were aware of that.
Oh,
And
no.
I don't. Zizzo puts it on.
Okay.
Raise some money for the United Way, and Joe Stanton and I were able to raise $3,500. And
Nice.
a lot of that was because Eric Kennedy was nice enough to donate a hashtag breaking bread, visit Milwaukee dinner. And I think we raised about $150 on that. So,
nice.
The big contribution, a man of the people.
I was with him actually on he called me up and actually on Thanksgiving Day, served some foods and did some things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate Eric. Good dude, really good dude.
Milwaukee's boyfriend, Eric Kennedy. What are you most proud of over the last 4 years?
Personally, I just have to say my girls.
That's cool.
My girls are just amazing. The amount of time watching them grow up, seeing them become the young women that they are has been just absolutely fantastic to watch.
And final question, why have you chosen to stay in Milwaukee and raise your family here?
Well, where else would I go? This is the best place in the state of Wisconsin and on earth. I mean, one, just regionally, right? Like when I think about Milwaukee, there's not too many communities like Milwaukee of this size, that's this great, and is right next to a lake, one of the largest fresh bodies of water in the entire world. I mean, we have so many things to offer. I don't care where you're coming from in this entire world. Milwaukee has something for you. Whether you talk about the German heritage, the African heritage, the Italian heritage, our Asian heritage, we have something for everybody. I mean, and we have some of the best summers. And I think when people come to Milwaukee and experience a summer here, they're like, we didn't even know this place existed. We have the most accessible beach in the entire country, possibly the world. We got music festivals, ethnic festivals that are happening all across this city on any given summer day. And so there's nothing short to do here. And it mind boggles me when people say, well, there's not nothing to do here. And I'm like, you're living under a rock. There's a lot of things to do in this city and in this county. So I mean, but also, you know, we talk about Midwest nice, but I believe that there's a Milwaukee nice, you know, and I think that even here, you know, whenever you catch eye contact with anybody, no matter where they're coming from, they're going to say hello, you know, or give you the head nod, and they're going to help you out if you're in need. And so I love this place. I think it's one of the absolute best places to raise a family. And it's not to say it doesn't come with challenges like any other place, but this place is now providing many more opportunities than we ever have before, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. County Executive David Crowley, thank you for coming on today.
Man, I appreciate you. This was fun.
And for all you do for the community.
Thank you.